Hello, good night, good evening, good morning, good day, wherever you are. Let me welcome you to this another episode of the Saudichress show. And of course, as usual, again, it may seem strange for me to be streaming on a Friday night in recent time, especially knowing that Friday night we always bring some sports or entertainment topic. But tonight, can't escape it. We are back with education. And so we are here tonight with one lovely lady. She is Mrs. Dorian Allen-Rainford. Of course, she's one of our JTA presidential elect for the 24-25 year. With this in mind, people, again, welcome to all my first time viewers. And if this is your first time, ensure that you subscribe so you'll have the opportunity to participate in the chat, all right, the live chat. And also, the number will be running along the screen. And if you wish, you may also call in for a very short discussion, not long. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, as it is, and Miss I must say, customary on the Saudichress show, I try my very best sometimes to introduce people, but somehow I get into trouble. I got into a lot of trouble because I've left so many things, especially with people of your stature. I know you wear many hats. I'm going to ask you to grace the show. Give us a brief summary of who Mrs. Dorian Allen Rainford is.
All right. Good night. Good night, sir. And thank you very much for having me.
You're
Good
welcome.
night, all those in Radio Land and right across Jamaica. Now, as you have been told, my name is Dorian Allen Rainford, and I am one of the candidates in the JTA President-elect elections for 2024 to 2025. Now, quickly, who am I? First of all, I'm a child of God. I am a minister of religion at the Bethel United Church of Jesus Christ Apostolic, and I am also a classroom teacher at the Convent of Mercy Academy Alpha, where I teach the subjects chemistry and integrated science. I have been a classroom teacher for over 27 years, and I enjoy the fact that I make a change in the lives of young people, young men, and young women.
Mrs.
I
Renford, just I realized that your video is gone off. I don't know if it is accidentally turned off, but that's, I don't know. Probably you could check it from your end.
oh,
Oh, you're
I've
back.
checked. Yeah,
Good.
but yes,
Thank you.
I don't
Sorry
know
for
how
the
it
break.
went off. Yes, all
Okay.
right. Yeah,
All
and
right. Continue.
yes. Okay, I am from an extended family. I have my siblings. My brother is a teacher. My sister is also a teacher. My husband is also a teacher. And my aunts, I have aunts and cousins. So I am from a long background of teaching professionals. I was born in Montego Bay. I I came to Kingston after I was accepted as a student at the University of West Indies, Mona, and I have since not returned to Montego Bay. However, I am there 3 or 4 times a year. While I was in Montego Bay, I attended schools such as Montego Bay Infant School, Barkswood Primary School, Montego Bay High School, still the creme of the creme, and and Montego Bay Community College.
Yes.
And I am somebody who is hungry for information. And that is why I have studied in so many disciplines. And I have a degree in pure and applied chemistry, an honors degree in pure and applied chemistry. I also have a master's of science degree in human resource development. I have a diploma in education and science. I have a diploma also in financial management and accounting. I'm an NCEL graduate, proud NCEL graduate,
Yes.
and I have done training in salaries and conditions of negotiation. And so here am I, and I'm married and I have two children.
Very good. That could be short. I wonder if it is really a summary. But very good. A very strong educational background, family oriented lady you are. Yeah, may I just ask, how did you get into the ministry? Or should I say religion?
All right. Can I tell you something? From the age of 7, 9, I remember I am originally from Open Bible Church, Pentecostal, but Open Bible Church. And from a young age, I was reciting on stage. I remember Faces of Jamaican Children by Terry Paris. And I remember when I recited that poem, the entire place erupted. And of course, there was this little tiny person on stage with a very strong voice, very assertive. And I have always realized that I grew up in Sunday school from an early age, and I realized that there was a calling, there was a desire for things of the Lord. And so I was an ardent Sunday school goer and very involved in Sunday school activities. And I before I went to University of the West Indies, I actually got baptized at the Open Bible Church. And I remember when I did not come back, my pastor was kind of upset and said, because they had a big send off for me and everything. And then when I came to Kingston after studying, I started going to a Pentecostal Apostolic Church, and that was by Slipe Road. And then I went over to my church that I'm presently a part of, Bethel United Church of Jesus Christ. And so I love the Lord. I love things of the Lord. I love to study the word. I love to fast. I love to pray. I am a prayer warrior. I really love to pray. And anything that deals with God, I mean, I'm there.
I tell you, sis, thinking about it, I'm sure that prayers have been working thus far, having you, maintain your own standards and what you believe in.
Yeah.
But it's really a pleasure having you here
Thank
tonight,
you
and
very much.
I must say that I'm expecting a very good show. Yes, I'm sure
Thank you.
that you will have your fans, your followers, your prospective voters will be here tonight. Hope they don't stay long.
I hope they tune in.
Because I'm sure that you would have run this link all over. But
Yes.
as it is, who or what would have inspired you to go for this post as president of the JTA?
Okay. I have been involved in the Jamaica Teachers Association for many years. As a matter of fact, I have been a teacher advocate for over 20 years. And I started out as a contact teacher at the Convent of Mercy Academy Alpha. And after I got my baptism in that,
Yes.
I realized that there was this hunger and there was a desire to help and to know more about the union and to assist teachers to understand their rights, to understand the benefits that are there, and to advocate where there are areas of doubt and despair, and to help them to when there were situations that I was called on as a contact teacher. I then gravitated towards the DA level, and then I became DA president of my DA, which is Kingston North Central District Association. After that, in another couple of years, I became parish president of Kingston Association. And as I delved more and more into the association, I realized I was learning new things, and I realized that I can make a difference, and I wanted to make a difference. And so I became a member of the General Council, the second highest decision making arm of the Jamaica Teachers Association outside of annual conference. And also I became a member of the Central Executive. And when I looked at what took place a year ago, there was a call for action. There was a call because I recognized that there was an outcry, an outburst. It's as if the teachers were abused. And so there was something that was beyond me that propelled me, that having served in so many areas, that there was a need to serve at the highest level to represent the interests of all categories of teachers. And so, like Esther, when she said, if I perish, I will perish, but I must see the king, there was a need to represent and be the voice of the teachers. And there is a need. And so I decided that I if given the opportunity, I would love to serve the association as an officer and as a president elect and subsequent president of this union that I'm proud to be a part.
I mean, wonderful. But I'm listening and really and truly, I looked at your manifesto, Mrs. Rainford. You have a 12-point manifesto. I don't know how this will be implemented, if it is over the entire year, or you think you'll need an additional year because president serves for 1 year. But I know that after that year, you still have some service given as outgoing president. But you made mention of how the teachers would have felt last year, yes, after the whole aspect of the realignment, the negotiation, so to speak, with the Ministry of Finance and the JTA. But in that, though, you would have played some role, very vital roles in the JTA. Were you a part of the negotiation team or any as it relates to salaries and condition last year?
All right. So thank you very much for that question. And it's ironic. I was asked almost a similar question today. And I must say truthfully that I was not a part of the negotiating team that went before the Ministry of Finance and the minister and his team. So I was not a part of that team. I would have been exposed to some areas and, being a part of general council in terms of feedback, but the actual facts I would not have known about in terms of what was there in terms of certain of the things that would have taken place. No, being a part of general council, I would, and also a number of delegate meetings that we were called to as delegates, because I'm a delegate of the association. Then there were things that were placed on the table in terms of what was being offered by this government. And I had a lot of questions. I was pretty vocal. So vocal I was that not only did I speak out at a number of the delegates meetings that took place, but I also participated in public demonstration right before the Ministry of Finance. And I was interviewed by the Gleaner. I was the article of the day in May 2023 as I spoke to what we had gotten and the fact that it was unrealistic to expect our teachers to continue to work without being properly compensated. I also spoke with the TVJ, and also there were other platforms that I used to communicate my discontent. Now, at the delegates meeting, when we were told, we were all given documentation as to this is what was being laid on the table. I was very vocal. I remember at one point I said, but tell me something. As someone who has studied law, I know that if we are being offered something, the offeree, which would be the Jamaica Teachers Association and the teachers, there must be correct documentation to say that this is what is on the table. No, there were insinuations, there were basically assumptions. And I spoke to them and said, but I am not seeing this in the documentation. Where is it that the increments that we as experienced educators who were getting it before, that where is it saying that this has been rolled into salaries? And if it has been rolled into salaries based on what I'm seeing, it is not making us better off. When I spoke about the fact that the increments that we would have gotten in terms of higher qualifications, such as masters and doctoral degrees. I was told that yes, it's there. I said, but where is the documentation? No, without the documentation, word of mouth is not good enough. Those of us who know law know that we must see it in black and white. We must see it there. And so I was very vocal several times speaking about the appraisal issues that were there and all the pointers that I saw. And the irony of that is when it came down to the nitty-gritty and when we saw what we were getting, I had to say that, you know, I was right. I knew what was coming because at the end of the day, it is the documentation that you get, that you have in your hand, that will point exactly what you are getting. And when I saw it, I was mortified. Trust me, I was really, really mortified to see that we who have studied so long and hard, who have given to this profession, we are not valued and we are not being paid our worth. We are not being paid based on our qualifications, based on our skills, and based on our core competences. And I'm saying, enough is enough. That as a government, this government need to start recognize and appreciate the bedrock and the builders of this society who have contributed to all other professions and make all other professionals who they are today.
But interestingly, and you would have made a point, the government must understand. But the fact that the negotiation among different unions, yes, with the government or with the Ministry of Finance,
Mhm.
how could we have signed knowingly? Yes, because you would have mentioned the government must recognize. But am I to blame the government there, or should at this point put the blame at JTA? The fact that they knew, and I'm saying they knew because you're a part of it, and many of you, all the other candidates, your fellow candidates, would have had the view that they were messed up. But why did they sign the fact that things were not looking good?
That's a question that I cannot answer for the powers of be in terms of why they sign.
Okay.
And you see, I can speak to what I saw, what should not have happened, but I can't speak to the mindset as to what would have propelled them to sign. I would have hoped that with the loud outcry from the masses when we had the various meetings, that the reality would have spurred them, oh, we can get better. And yes, I know that we as a union, we are part of the federation of the trade union. I'm fully aware of that. And there are certain things that the fact that they went ahead and signed that automatically would affect us. But there were other areas that were specific to the education system and to the teachers of this country that would and should have propelled them and caused them not to want to go ahead and sign. Now, we have been speaking about two particular reports here. We have been speaking about the Ernst and Young report, and we have been speaking about the Orlando Patterson report, who incidentally is the chairman of who did the Ernst and Young report in 2021. Now, that report was used to, at the time, what we were told and what and the possibility that it would have propelled them to say that, oh, the government can't do better than this. I mean, this is because we are 26,000 strong and based on the budget and everything. But I was stunned when I realized that there were factors and there was information in that same report that would have um be that would have indicated what areas, what increases, what alignment would be taking place for other sectors in the public service, including our most esteemed colleagues in terms of the government of this country. And I said to myself, but 300% increase, 200% increase, 100% increase, and we are going to settle for a meager 20% increase over 3 years. It didn't make sense. It does, I could understand if you didn't know. And so I cannot explain why, but I do know that as your president, if given the opportunity to be the president of this illustrious union that I love so much, then the fact of the matter is, in going to the negotiating table with the team, the service and conditions of services, that there's a committee. So in going to that table, then the facts must be known. What is being laid on the table must be clearly articulated, and the calculations must be done to see how will this improve our island's teachers, the salaries. How will this improve the benefits? These calculations must be done before they are signed. And
But
yours truly has the ability. So the thing about it is not, as a person and as
yes,
a leader who has done financial management and accounting, and I understand gross domestic product, I understand the effect of inflation, price increases, all those things on the economy, our buying power, etc. Then, in real terms, what we are given must be able to allow us to have a livable wage and to pay our bills, to take care of our families, and to take care of ourselves. So, in real terms, when you look at a $5,000 on the pay or a $10,000 on the pay, in real terms, there's no growth, there's no increase, because our buying and our spending power would have been eroded. And so, all of those factors would have to be taken into consideration before I'm signing, and also in terms of interpreting the increase and to see what exactly is in real terms that
yes.
increase would be.
So hold on a second. You mentioned about Ernst and Young report, right?
Mhm.
No. Yes, we were not aligned the way the proposal were. That's what you're saying, right?
Mhm.
Where should we be? Tell us some more about that aspect of the report, because I've heard it over and over, but yet I want you to tell us,
All right.
where
So,
did the government shift us? The goalpost has shifted based on the report or the proposal. But where is
mhm.
it? Where should we be?
All right. So this report was commissioned in 2021. The Ernst and Young report, and as I indicated to you, it had as its chairman at the time, Orlando Patterson. Now, this report indicated that there should have been greater emphasis on early childhood sector, and also in terms of the compensation, in terms of the salaries, the benefits, and the working conditions. This report also pointed to the fact that trained graduates, so those teachers with a degree along with a diploma, should have started in 2021 at $3 million minimum. We're not talking about those with masters or doctoral or in terms of seniority. So all
Yes.
of those weren't factored in right there. Now, um, when everything would have been added up, the teacher with a master's
Mhm.
would have expected, based on the starting point, would have expected to see at that time, based on the 2021 report, something like 3.5, 3.6 million at the time. And so if we fast forward based on inflation to 2024, in real terms, that 3.5 would in reality be about $4 million. So that was the report, the recommendation. Now we are fully aware that that was a recommendation, but the point is that recommendation, that same report that was commissioned, that report was used to align all other categories of public sector workers. That same report was used to align, as I said, the government, the officer corps, cabinet, the members of parliament, the prime
Are
minister,
you
the
saying
leader
to
of
me,
the
hold on, hold
opposition.
on. Are you
So
saying to
all
us
of it,
tonight
yes. And
That the
of course,
same report,
mhm, mhm,
yes, they have used to align all
to
public
retain the
sector
brightest and the best minds.
except the teachers.
Except the teachers, to align the brightest and best minds. Because guess what? I am not saying the brightest and best minds in our country must not be paid properly. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying that our prime minister and they must not be paid properly. But what I'm saying, there is a particular sector of public sector workers who have given service beyond self over the years, who need to be paid based on their worth and based on their value, and who need to get a livable wage. And so giving them a little, chup to pants and telling them, yes, you must make blood out of stone. I am saying enough is enough. We have whole strain enough. We went through where we had the free wage, freeze and all of the 5%. And I'm saying, after that, when we expected that finally we would be compensated properly, what we got was a nightmare to most of us, including myself. And I'm saying to our esteemed government, this is not good enough. It cannot continue because we are among the brightest and best minds in our country. And in order to stop the migration, and that's also one of the things that the report spoke to, if you're going to stop the migration, then you must have incentives. You must have proper working conditions. You must have proper salaries that will cause members of our profession to want to remain and not to go elsewhere. And so there was a need that we focus not just on the general teaching
Yes.
profession in terms of equity across the education system, but also the fact that we focus on our early childhood practitioners. The report said that early childhood practitioners must be made a priority. Must.
And a priority in terms of what? Salary
Priority.
or training?
Must be made a priority in terms of one, salary, two, fringe benefits, three, working conditions. Now, when we talk about the working conditions, and working conditions, also we look at incentives. We'll also be looking at training. We also be looking at resources that are available, what they have to work with, to use to ensure that the students in their care, the children in their care, are nurtured, and the interventions that are needed at that early age are put in place, so that we don't hear that the teachers them don't care and they may produce and they may put children in primary school, when they graduate them can't read and write, when they reach high school, when they graduate they can't read and write. And I'm saying we are given what? Basket to carry water, because these early childhood practitioners, the philosophy of education speak about what? Inclusion. Every child can learn, and inclusion, so special needs everybody, and you must teach. But where are the resources? Where's the training? Where are the factors that are needed to ensure that teaching is effective, so that learning will take place, and that our children, when they move on, that they will realize they will take their place in society? And some of the social crisis that we are having, violence and all those things, some of those are the root cause are coming from the same early childhood level, where interventions that were needed could not take place because
True.
the resources that were needed were not there.
You know, it's so much when you talk about all these things, miss. And I wonder every time I listen and I heard you people talk about, livable wages and so on, so to speak. But I'm going to get to that. But let me chime in on the second point you have in your manifesto. The formula that was used to calculate the salaries of the island teachers is no. So
Mhm.
you're saying to me you'll provide that formula. At this point, I don't know the formula that was used. Can you say how they calculate the formula?
All
What
right,
formula
so
they used to calculate the salary the last time around?
so let me clarify. I don't know the formula that they used either.
My
All right.
God.
However, because none of us know. Usually you could look at your pay stub and you could compare and you say, okay, this is for furniture and equipment, this is for that, and there's a comparison. So none of us know the formula, and so there was the wondering, was it AI, was it what? However, having been given my pay stub and my salary, then I am able to dissect it, and I'm seeing there are two parts: your income, that's your gross basic,
Yes.
and I am seeing the only thing there is clothing and allowance right now. Clothing, the 1,500 other than the basic gross. And then on the right hand side, you will see your expenditure. These are the things that will be coming out. And so each teacher must understand how does the increase in the threshold would have affected them. What increases that? How much is income tax? How much is NHT contribution? How much is education tax? All of those things that are coming out. And hence, at the bottom, what am I getting? What do I expect to get? And so it cannot be where you just collect your PA and say, that's the end of it. No. When you first have to value you, and you must value what you get, and you must ensure that what you get adds up to what you expect to get. And so, as a leader of this association and as a prospective president and as your president, I believe that one of my duties is to empower the teachers so they understand how to do the calculations based on what they are given. I have tried to do it as much as possible when teachers reach out to me and ask me, Allen-Rainford, whatever. And so I send them, these are the steps. This is how you do it. And it has been quite useful, and I do hope that the teachers would, it would enable them and empower them and help them so that they must know if they're not getting the right one and what it should be, so you can't be just working and you don't know, even with the little that you get. And so I this is something that I believed in. This is something with my competence in financial management and accounting and a mathematical background, because I teach integrated science and chemistry. Chemistry is a lot of mathematics.
Yes.
I have been able to do this, and I thought it best to share it and to empower other educators.
I thank you on that because it's very important that everybody have at least the basic idea of how to calculate their own salaries.
Yeah.
Mark you, the last time around, I thought that we also knew, but somehow we could not compute it, whatever was given. Anyhow, this is another thing that I want you to really speak about. You want the government, or you would want the government in your tenure to increase and effect recommendation packages paid to all teachers by moving them to at least 80% of prevailing market value. What
Mhm.
is the market value here in Jamaica today?
All right.
Let
So
me see if I
market
can find
value.
where 80% would have brought or bring me to.
All right. So you want a monetary value that you think that would be
Yes.
realistic.
So realistically, what is
All
market
right.
value now?
So realistically, if we speak about market value in terms of how we compete with other professionals and live based on cost of living, because market value also have to look at the impact of cost of living and inflation on your spending power and your
Yeah.
buying power and what you are getting. So I would say uh a teacher who has as at least a first degree and a diploma should be taking home at least $250,000 after tax. Net is after tax. Gross is before tax, and that is per month.
So that is
So
so that is what you
right,
want them to take. So that if
right.
they come with that $250,000 net,
Net.
right?
And that is just a teacher with a degree and a diploma. Remember that you have teachers with years of experience that we would add that to it, and also with a higher levels of qualifications such as masters and doctor that you would also add to it.
All right. So $250,000
After
would have been
tax.
after tax would have been 80%
About that.
about
Somewhere
that.
about that.
So you're looking at market value then.
Just for trained graduates. Remember,
Yes,
trained
trained
graduates.
graduates.
Right, right. Just at that level. Yes.
So market value
Mm-hmm.
would have been. I'm trying to see if I can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a maths brain like you are. Yes. That means the market value we're looking at is about $312,000.
Before tax. Somewhere there. Somewhere
Three
there.
hundred and twelve
Before,
thousand
yeah,
dollars.
gross per
Would that
month.
be before tax or after tax?
No, the $330,000 per month, that would be before tax. Remember,
Before
we're
tax.
talking, and I just want to make sure that I am making my point clear, very, very clear to
Yes.
those persons who are listening. I am talking about that market value as it relates to almost the lowest point,
Point.
meaning
Oh, wow.
those teachers with just a degree and a diploma, those are the trained graduates. So, as I've
Interesting.
been trying to say to you, that there are teachers, there are educators who also have masters, there are educators who have years of service. And I am saying that in addition to that basic, then other things would have been added to it to make sure that the teachers will be paid their value and their worth based on the qualifications. And I keep stressing that
Yes.
qualifications, core competencies, and abilities.
So, people, you have heard, and I'm sure that that is interesting news. If it is that Mrs. Rainford can really put the test to the finance minister or the government at hand, it is not this year for sure, but we are looking forward for another 2 years when we shall have seen, if you're gonna put it then, where we are coming from to where we are at. All right, a businesswoman, and she knows it. People, you don't know it, go. And I will say to the males here and set, if you want your budget to really work, you know who to call on. But another thing, yes, to reintroduce the increment. I remember back
Mhm.
in the days, every year, every September, so to speak, for
Yes,
most persons, you'd have got some increment. I remember back in the days, every September, I was looking forward for an additional $1,000 on the salary.
yes, or something like that.
Yeah, run about it. That's when I remember.
Mhm.
Now, how can you, what would be your punchline really to get the government to go back? Because right now, this realignment is what it
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't see and I cannot foresee the realignment change
Mhm.
based on the reports and also recommendations. But how will you really get to these people to say, listen, this is where we are short? What difference do you have in terms of your negotiation skills with respect to those who we use or who negotiated last time around?
All right. So, am I running down a fairy tale and it cannot happen? And I strongly believe that I am not running down something, that a shadow that it will not cannot materialize.
Yes.
Uh, I Going back to the matter of increments, and we see where right now an increment was laid on the table for those with masters. Granted, it was an insult, because what getting $5,000 after tax per month on your pay cannot go to the supermarket.
And I guess that before that, what was the master's allowance like?
The master's allowance at the time, before we stopped getting it, was after tax, something like 9,000 odd, 8,000 odd. Before tax was to like 12,000 something, whatever. So instead of going forward, we have actually gone backward.
That's a big
Cost
cut.
of living has increased. And so we have been devalued rather than valued. And I'm saying that total foolishness. And so when you put the facts on the table to the minister, and the minister recognized that we will not take no for an answer, because the fact of the matter is monies were found in the budget to ensure that other areas, other public sector bodies were let me not say that they got exactly what they wanted, but they were somewhat satisfied. They are satisfied enough that we don't hear them. We don't hear any rumbling. All
But,
right.
but you
There
can't blame the government for that, miss.
no. But I
It would have
see
been the team of negotiators.
I
Yes?
see where you're going there. I see where you keep going there. But I'm a leader,
Yes.
and let me say to you is that there were I am not I there is no question that the the buck stopped at the union, and the buck stopped at the negotiating team, and the buck stopped
Right.
at the particular persons who led the team on behalf of the teachers. I cannot dispute that. That cannot be disputed. And as I say, the mindset and the rationale that would have been used to propel and to compel them to sign is still, I'm not seeing in it. I cannot see it. I cannot understand it. And however, it is what it is. Now, as a leader, one of the things that I've learned in leadership, and I've led at various levels, is that we cannot tear down what we expect and what we want to aspire to. And so,
Yes.
as a prospective leader, in terms of at the highest level, the president of the association, I do understand that there are areas that need to be fixed. I do understand that there are things, but like a family where you don't air your dirty linen in public, because a family that is divided against itself cannot stand. And once John Public and the powers of be realize that there is the division, then the fact of the matter is that will be used instead of to our best interest. It will use to actually push us down and not elevate us. And so, and that's why I have been sidelining each time
But I
I
want to make it clear though, you know.
I know where you're going. I know
No, no,
what
no,
you
no, no.
are asking,
I
but I
want to make it
also
clear.
believe that there are certain things that you make remain in house. There are
No,
certain
man.
questions
This is
I
what I'm
ask.
saying. This is what
Yes.
I'm saying. I want to
Mhm.
clarify. I am
Yeah.
not targeting or
Mm-hmm.
putting a punch on the
Mm-hmm.
JTA as it relates to the negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
What I am simply saying,
Mm-hmm.
or what I am asking rather,
Mm-hmm.
having cast a blame on the government, yes,
Uh-huh.
as it relates to other public sector workers would have been satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, our association, yes, our
Uh,
sector is dissatisfied. So that's what I want to say, where the problem lies or what could have
mhm,
happened. So that's all my take. Not a
mhm.
matter of to say,
Okay. Okay. All
and
right.
so on. So
All right.
that's where I want to say. So
Okay.
where's
All
the
right.
root problem?
So, there were there's no question about it that there was some gray area. There was some crossing of wires. There something was not clear. Um, and and one of the things that, as I indicated to you early on, is that documentation is key. It's okay for you to say to me that I'm going to do this, but if I don't see it in black in there, and there's the document that speaks to what will happen and what is the intent, then for me, I'm not buying it. All right. And so I think that that may have been one of the areas that would have cost the teachers, and that the negotiating team may not have properly looked at and assessed. All right, because at the end of the day, we are all teachers in the profession, and we have heard that what was bargained for was not what we actually got. And so I have heard that. But as I said, the disclaimer is that um documentation, when it comes on to contracts, you cannot wait until at the end of the day you see this is what it is and you go and sign. Right through there's a process to negotiation. And I have been trained in industrial relations, and and the the which also would also have some area of negotiation the IDT and all those things that when we talk about that. And the also, as I said to you, the fact that I know some law, having done law, some amount of law at about 2 or 3 times in my life, then one of the first things that came out, that just jumped out at me when all the meetings and everything was, but sir, but my most, I mean, with due respect, where is the documentation which allude to the fact that this is what we will get at the end of the day? And so when that documentation came, it was short, too short, far too short. And it was a painful thing for too many of us as teachers, as experienced teachers, as teachers with higher qualifications, to realize that after so many years of serving in a profession that we love and a country that we love so much, that we don't feel as if we were valued and we got the end of the stick. And as I said, I won't say that to some extent my union will have to probably take some of the stick for what happened. But
Yes.
certainly, most certainly, the government of the day, knowing the fact that the brightest and best minds, one of the things that you use to retain them is salaries, is incentives, working conditions, fringe benefits, then they would have known, having seen the need to retain the brightest and best minds, that in order for us as a profession, the educators, the teaching profession, to retain the brightest and best minds, then all of those would also apply to our profession.
You know, that goes to show, and if that is the reality, the brightest and best mind, in my view, would have been in the classrooms.
Mhm.
Yes. And so many times we have been mistreated, I would say. Because if you want to use that same statement that was made by the government in order to increase the, what would I say now, the importance or the love for the profession, yes, is to give them a good salary package. But for years now, our profession in terms of numbers and quality has been depleted because they are lured to different areas with strong financial benefits.
Mhm.
But the fact though, I ask this question all the while, all the time. But we have been asking for salaries. I would make mention of conditions of, and
Fringe
all of
benefits.
this,
Mhm.
fringe benefits. But the truth is, as a mathematician and as somebody who I think know budget, do you really believe the government in the present state can afford
Mhm.
to give us what you're asking for?
And I will say yes. Let me tell you why I will say yes. I will say yes because so many times we hear about projects, and we're talking about a 1.3 trillion budget that was read to
Yes.
us the last time. And in that and as a matter of fact, even before that, we heard about that they couldn't afford to pay the teachers more
Mhm.
because they would have to do a supplementary thing, and we had to sign within a particular time frame. And if we did not sign within a particular time frame, then it means that we'll have to wait 1 year, or until the next budget cycle. And I believe that that was a ploy. That was a direct ploy to get the teachers, to get the Jamaica Teachers Association to sign. Because after that signing, we saw a supplemental budget coming to us. And that budget was used to pay some more different professions. That supplementary budget was used to now pay our most illustrious colleagues in the profession, and I'm talking about our government and all those people. And I'm saying is that yes, there are fewer in numbers, and that's one of the things they always say to us. Because we are 26,000 strong, and then if they are to pay based on the numbers and based on what we ask, then they would not be able to do that. But when we look at what is happening, and when we look at the wasting of the resources that we see every day. Other day we heard about the tax, the tax office, and the leasing, and how much millions and how much billions. And I'm saying that if there's proper governance and accountability, and taxpayers' money is properly utilized, then it can happen. What it means is that proper governance must take place, not just in the JTA, but in the schools and in the governmental system the government of the day, and all governments. And so one of the things, and why our counterparts, Barbados, St. Kitts, all of those can pay better and pay more, is that they pay attention to governance. Now, when we compare what our illustrious colleagues are getting out here to what is happening in other countries, we see that there's a gross disparity. And so I'm saying, allow all members, allow our workers to be satisfied, and pay them according to their qualifications. Now, when you pull somebody off the road and say, run for your counselor, or you pull somebody, whatever, and you say, okay, you can get this, whatever, because we retain the brightest and best minds. Correct me if I'm wrong. The fact of the matter is, there are so many persons who are in positions of authority who are not necessarily the brightest and best minds, but they are paid handsomely. Now, why shouldn't our teachers be paid properly? We're not asking for extra. We're asking to be paid based on our worth and our value. So I'm saying to you, in answering your question, that yes, the government can. And how will they be able to do that if there is proper governance and accountability to ensure that the wasting of our resources do not take place? Then there is enough money to be allocated to properly compensate all categories of teachers.
All right. I heard it. Teachers, category of teachers. Are you talking about category of teachers in terms of experience, qualification, or are you dealing with the category in terms of ranks or position?
All right. So categories of teachers would have to do with both. And we're talking about the administrators. We're talking about we're speaking about the senior teachers. We are talking about the administrators, and when I talk about administration, we're talking about the principalship, all right, the CEOs and the chief accounting officers, all right, and chief executive officers of the schools, that they hold that position, including yourself, sir. So we're looking at the hierarchy, because in every organization there is a hierarchy, all right, and so in terms of responsibility, in terms of what you are being asked to do. However, there must be equity. And so this is where I speak in terms of experience, I speak in terms of qualifications, I speak in terms of other things that you would have gotten over the years that must be taken into consideration. So as I said, both of them, the hierarchy in organization, the hierarchy. So you're going to have the different levels. So you're going to have the principal, the senior teachers, of course, vice principals, senior teachers. You're going to have the teachers, and of course, so hierarchy. But the fact of the matter is, you cannot remove the various other aspect to it. And so where we fell down in the last negotiation, the last restructuring exercise, let me say the last realignment, is that nothing was placed on the board. Enough attention was not given to the masses, the most of us who fall in the range of higher education, such as those with masters, those with doctoral degrees, and those with years of experience. And so, because enough attention was not paid there, what we find happening is that those teachers who are just coming into the profession are in fact getting almost the same amount of money as the ones who have been in there for years. No, experience cannot be bought at the shop. And the experience that the brightest and best minds and the abilities, the core competencies that they bring to the table, somebody who's just coming into the profession would not be in that position to bring to the table. And that is why we find that other countries are basically begging, grabbing up those same teachers who feel as if they have been rejected by their own country, because other countries realize the value of experience and the value of qualifications. So I hope I've answered your question as it looks at the levels in terms of the categories, and also the fact that I'm also looking at, when I break it down a little bit more, the experience and the qualification.
Well, yes, you do. But this one now, miss, a little, what I would say, a little controversial statements or arguments that I've brought through from negotiation over the year. There's a food for thought that many would have believed that it is not equitable, yes?
Uh-huh.
There's no equality. It
Uh-huh.
is unfair on the part of the teachers as it relates to the comparison of the rates or the salaries between the teacher and the principals. I'm putting it on the table.
I see that. I see that you want to get me in trouble today.
No, no, you have heard it. Am I right? And I'm sure you're a
Yes,
classroom
yes,
teacher
I've
now.
heard it.
And,
I've
and,
heard
and
it.
there's also an argument that
Mm-hmm.
the classroom teacher would have been right now at this point the best one to represent the teachers
Mm-hmm.
instead of the usual where
Mm-hmm.
principals are always been the
Mm-hmm.
president representing the teachers. What's your
Mm-hmm.
take on that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So I believe, as I say, all categories of teachers must win. And when I say all categories of teachers, I'm also speaking to the principalship. All right. Now, a principal is both a CEO, as I indicated before, the chief
Yes.
executive officer and the chief accounting officer. And he or she is responsible for whatever takes place at his or her school. So let me put that on the table. And so the responsibilities that come with it means that there are a certain level of compensation that is expected, because you are in charge of all, not just the teachers, but the ancillary, the other support staff, all of those. All right, you are responsible for the stakeholders that are in your care, other stakeholders that's the students, one of the key stakeholders at the school. All
Yes.
right, and so the level of responsibility that you have put under your care means that you must be compensated properly. So let me put that on the table and let me make that very clear. Where there is an issue, I think, and I am almost sure, is the, as you mentioned, the disparity. And that disparity would have to do with the fact that the classroom teachers, the compensation the realignment that took place catered to those too many, in terms of the increases were were pretty huge at the top, whereas they were minimal towards the bottom. It would not have been a problem if we saw relative to the teachers, let's say 20%, basically for the teachers in most cases. All right. And we saw that level of increase or realigning taking place at the top. Because the fact of the matter is, our principles, and I'm an aspiring principal, so don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking principals. I have a lot of colleagues who are principals, but they are already at the top. They already would have been getting a salary that allows them to live, if not comfortable, but live adequately, more than adequately. We know that there are teething pains in terms of some of the things that they are asked to do, especially at the primary level, and being jack of all trades and all those things. But the fact of the matter is, a number of our teachers who would not have gotten the principalship, not because they are not qualified, not because they are not ambitious, but because they were just not given the opportunity to get that position. And a number of them are very qualified. A number of our teachers are very qualified. And so if we look in terms of qualifications, then the disparity in terms, we have teachers with doctoral degrees, we have teachers with masters. And so the level of input that they would have taken in terms of education, that cannot be put on and thrown out. And so I think that is what created that feeling of being, let me not use such a word as being raped, but not being adequately taken care of in the last period. Now, you spoke also to the matter of the teacher against the principal. I am for all, because a principal is also a teacher. And I believe strongly that if we divide the profession and we speak about principals on one side and teachers on the other side, then we can't get the best. We will never negotiate and get the best that we can get. We will not get the best deal, because once the government or the entities that are in power recognize that there is division and there's a divide, they are going to use it to their best interest. And, as a Christian, we hear about the devil, will always come in, especially when you realize that, they said what fight against whatever. And so that is one of the things that I will not say that I am actually going ahead and say is a teacher principal. However, one of the things that I must make very clear to everyone and is that there is a negotiating team. And the negotiating team is comprised of persons who represent all of the sectors of the education system. Now,
Noting clearly what were those persons? What categories of those persons?
Well, some of the times those persons are principals, meaning that you have a principal from the early childhood, a principal from the secondary, a principal from the tertiary, which it happens quite a lot sometimes. And also there is an election process where members of the negotiating team are elected at general council. As president, the president actually puts the chairman in place of the team as a chairperson.
But Mrs. Renford, let me cut you.
Mm-hmm.
That team that you made mention of
Mm-hmm.
is dominant
Mm-hmm.
with principals.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't that be enough argument? Yes. to say that these negotiators are those persons who negotiated should have negotiated in line with them.
Woo! Ah, ah, okay. Uh, I normally say, and as somebody who is very involved in the church and everything, as a pastor, gonna christen them pitney first. I mean, no, yeah,
You
me
do
know.
that as a
Me,
pastor. That's what you do.
well, guess what? Listen, you are called on
Yes.
as a leader in the church to first of all, God first, your family, then the church. You can't take care of the church and your family leave. And you can't take care of the church and there's no relationship with God. All right. Now, I made that analogy to say that if we have a negotiating team that consists of too often of a number of principles, then what will normally happen is that you're gonna look for that little sector. So I yeah. So you see, I've been diplomatic. I'm answering, but I'm
Yes.
also diplomatic,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Because as a leader, also you must be diplomatic.
You know what? I'm gonna say anything more on that one because I don't want any trouble tonight here.
Okay.
Big up yourself, Mr. Lee. Thanks for joining. Good night. And people, I see you listening and watching. You need to say something. Give us some argument, man. Talk to us. And remember to hit the like button. Share. We still have a few minutes to go. But here we are on with Mrs. Dorian Redford. And I'm sure that you're enjoying the show. She's very capable and so on. But it has been a long, what do I say now, a long path as it relates to your own negotiation last year. And now with you going through your own, what do I say now, selection process where you're trying to sell yourself for a better word. The
Mhm,
lady of class.
mhm.
Yes, that's what she's asking people. She's the lady of class for you to vote on. But let's move away from the salary because too often we believe that JTA is
It's all
more
about
about salary.
salary.
Yes,
Mhm,
and fringe benefits. And that
mhm,
is so.
mhm.
I have a problem with that because, and in this case, I have to put the blame squarely on at the feet of JTA or the hierarchy. No, it is within this time or this period that everybody in Jamaica hear about the JTA.
Mhm,
When it comes to a negotiation here. You have in your manifesto quite a number of points that you want to
mhm,
bring about or bring forward
mhm,
outside of salaries.
mhm.
Yes, there's one particular one I want to look at before, not in any order, so to speak. But you want to put adequate resources, right? I want to provide to schools by MOE. You want the MOE to provide to schools, right? The documentation. I'm not so clear on this one. But let
Okay.
me read it
Mhm.
as it is.
Yeah.
Adequate
Uh-huh.
resources provided to schools by MOE once completed documentation has been received. What is
Mhm.
it you're talking about here? What
All
is it?
right. So let me elaborate on that one. As a science teacher, I have seen where too many times you need to conduct labs. That's just one of the areas I'm looking at. You need to conduct
Yes.
labs. And what you find is that the the equipment, the material, the chemicals that are needed for the labs, for the SBAs, that are not they are not there. And so you have to compromise the integrity and compromise what you are trying to get accomplished and what you are trying to ensure that the children learn, because you are now using resources that are inferior, inadequate, not as accurate, because accuracy is very important when we speak, some of the labs, the plan and design and all those things. All right. So, I mean, in terms of my own unique situation as a chemistry teacher and having to do S-base and something there. So, end up doing a lab where you don't feel as if the students are getting the values and the results, and they actually do not get the values and the results that they are supposed to get, because the resources were not in place for the labs to be done effectively, and so learning is affected. And so I'm saying that there's a lab technician, and a lot of schools have lab technicians, would have done the inventory. These are what are missing. These are whatever. It's taken to the bursar, to the principal, and then these will be sent along. No, there are times when schools are waiting for years, and them still waiting, and
The
those things are not there.
limited resources.
Are expected to be the top schools, and we know the disparity between the top ones that have more, not necessarily all, and those that do have no. And then guess what, when CXC results come out and we rank them, we don't rank them based on the value that the schools, the teachers add in. We rank them based on the passes, which I believe is so unfair because the resources were not there. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, so right. And I concur with you. Where the resources are short, it's going to be difficult for you to compare school A with limited resources to compare with school B with have adequate resources. It's a difficult one. It's a
Mm-hmm.
difficult one.
Mm-hmm.
But with that too, you know, all those adequate resources that you would propose,
Mm-hmm.
what aspect, and I think you have something as it relates to accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
increase the accountability at all levels of the education system.
Mm-hmm.
But how would you effectively, yes, hold schools from administration to the teachers accountable when these adequate resources are given?
All right. So how would I hold them accountable? And we speak about, in terms of accountability, the documentation. Documentation is key, is critical. All right. The correct document. There are times when you don't take the time to have the documentation in place. And so when you go back and check, and in terms of the audits and everything, and so you see inconsistencies. And so in order for accountability to work and in order for accountability to be effective, then administrators must understand the principle, the necessity to ensure that the documentation that is needed at the various levels must be in place. Because if you don't have anything to balance and anything to conduct in terms of what was there before and what is here now, then you don't know if you have moved or you are still at the same place. And so it may be exhausting to some persons, but it is the right thing that must be done. And it is the only way, when accountability, proper accountability, that includes, as I said to you, all that I said to you before, and the audits must be done. Too often, the audits are too far and in between. And so when you audit the thing, then you can able to see where are the shades of gray, what is missing, what needs to be done, how can I make my institution a better one, what era did the institute, so you are able to see it clearly, and so you can improve. And when you improve as a school, you improve for all stakeholders in the school. And so that plan, that ideal, that idea can move across. And if the government have the proper accountability checks in place, then the wasting of the resources that take place, which ensure that the the taxpayer money is not used adequately and effectively. And so we have these areas of these gaps. And so to, to actually fill these gaps, accountability must take place at all levels. And so if it's done at the school level, and the Ministry of Education, in terms of making certain demands on the school, in making those demands, the schools need to make demands on the Ministry of Education.
Very strong indeed, people. Continue to pour in your questions, your suggestion. I've not seen much, but I'm telling you, you can call if you wish, or you can text. Miss, we have maybe about another 15 minutes to go if you wish, but that's where we take it to. But we talk about improve fringe benefits for teachers, including health, housing, and other social amenities. I want to ask you this one about the housing. Because I hear a lot of your candidates. It seems like you have a pool of pool of points, yes? Or is it that the study that you have done, you picked up the needs of the educators? But housing, what is your proposal? What are you proposing to the government in terms of these benefits for housing for teachers?
All right, so let me just go quickly to the fact that you mentioned that I seem to have, all of us seem to have some of the similar stuff, and that is also in engaging teachers. Then you would have heard these
Okay,
are the areas that they would like to be addressed, and also
good.
the fact that you are there in the system, you would also understand the cries and understand the needs. All right, so housing. Um, Let me start quickly by saying that NHT contribution, presently we have what, million that we contribute to NHT,
Yes.
the
Or that
workers,
what you have gotten.
that we would, in terms of when not contribute to NHT. Let me, sorry,
Consider
sorry,
that,
sorry.
yes.
In terms of our benefits that we get from NHT, let me correct that. All
Yes.
right, when we want to buy a house, and that is towards the house, because if it's land, it's less than that, and then you get bid on all land. Now, I want to state categorically that the labor force consists of both public sector workers and private sector workers. Now, I am not expecting and I'm not agitating that this government will give 100% increase in the benefit. We make it 40 million, because with 26,000 teachers, and let's say about 5,000 or so own houses, and we're talking about another 20 or 15,000 that don't own a house. When we crunch the numbers,
Yes.
that is a huge bill. All right. Now,
Yes.
the fact of the matter is, the government would have to now explain and would have to try to match that with private and other public sector workers, because they belong to the labor force, and NHT is a contribution that members of the labor force must. All right. So I would not go there. No, in terms of workable and affordable solution, I'm saying to the government that give us lands, affordable lands. I don't know if a few years ago, if you knew about Karachi, we're just across from Mona Heights, right there. So these lands were made available to public sector workers. And as a matter of fact, I believe that too small number of these lands were made available to teachers. I, as a teacher, applied for to get a piece of the land. At the time, the lands were going for 200 and something $1,000.
And you
No,
never get pieces?
Operation Pride. I don't know if you remember about
Yes.
Operation Pride. Yes. If you go there now and you see the houses that are there, boy, I tell you, say, when you go to Narbrook, or when you go to Beverly Hills, and probably Beverly Hills houses would be probably a little bit more something there. But when you go to Cherry Gardens, some of the houses that I see in Karachi right now, they are super built. And I'm saying to this government, if more of those lands can be made available to our islands teachers, once those lands are available across the country, then say, whatever we put our mind to, then we'll find the resources and we'll build on it. No, without the lands, I'm saying that the government could also give us housing schemes. Make more housing scheme. The number of when you have housing schemes available, let's say we have a housing scheme being built in a certain area, we have about 2 or 3 teachers being able to benefit from, let's
Yes.
say, about 70 or 80 houses. I am saying to this government, that is, I mean, too small. 26,000 teachers, that's not good enough. If the government puts aside 15 to 20 of those houses and said these are reserved for teachers, then at the end of the day, more teachers will benefit. More teachers will feel valued. More teachers will feel as if they have gotten something from the profession. Can you imagine when some of us retire and we live in rent house? And some teachers, some of the retirees don't have any support system, they don't have any children. And if them have children, the children not going to take, it's nothing like one time when your children were your pension. Those days are done, right?
I'm not
So
sure about that, but it's interesting. Very interesting area. Pensioners, our children are your pension.
well, there was a time, seriously,
Those were the
there's
days.
a time, yeah, but it's not now. It's not,
But
that's not happening now.
before this miss me, I want to ask you though two questions, but this one I want to ask first. In the public's what would I say now? Prime Minister Holness, yes, in his
Mm-hmm.
sectoral debate for the
Mm-hmm.
budget year 24-25, he
Mm-hmm.
has made mention that the NHT, yes, with over 4,000 houses, and will be made available to people $15 million,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
for 100% financing up to $15 million.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you picked it up or if you read the report, the
Mm-hmm.
budget speech. But
Mm-hmm.
what would you made of it? The fact that you want the government to give something. Is that any assistant? Is that it make it any easier for our teachers to ascertain houses?
All right. So uh that's put on the table the budget, and said this is what we are going to do to make a certain number. I notice there's a limited number, 15 million open
Up to
market.
50
No,
million.
right. No, up to 15 million. And you said something about what, 400,000
Yeah, over 400,000 houses.
houses. All right. And so those number of houses will be made available. And is it over a period of time? Period of
Yeah,
time.
I think it's over 2 years or something like
Over
that.
2 years.
Let
And
me, I can double check, but I
probably
just really
quite
want to look at it.
ambitious. I don't remember about the 400,000.
No,
All
man,
right.
not 400,000 rather. 4,000. No, sorry.
Okay, I heard that's why I'm
4,000.
saying that the 400,000 sound
No,
very
it's 4,000.
ambitious.
Sorry about that. My
Okay.
apologies.
Okay. No, one of the things, and as a teacher, I've had to do, in use my skills as much as possible in order to ensure that I can survive. All right. And so I am in fact a real estate agent.
Man.
And
That means you
so
can
I
help the
know
teachers, man.
and so I know somewhat, so about um the what are the things that are needed, the documentation, um and also in terms of some of the other things, the other competing factors in terms of attaining a house. Now, yes, we know about closing costs. We know about the 10% that must be in place, and in fact it's actually 15% overall, because when we add the closing costs and the stamp duty and the having the down payment and other things that will come along, it actually works out to close to 15%. um the fact of the matter is, accessing up to $15 million on the open market, um from somebody who knows about the open market, um what you find is that there are not enough houses that are in fact 15 million and less right now. that any individual can in fact buy. Because what you find happening that once the benefits, the NHT benefits increase in terms of there is an increased ceiling, the owners of these houses also
Gonna push
increase.
their cost up.
Exactly. And so at all time there is a competing force. And so even with 15 million, what I'm in fact saying, that even with 15 million, most persons end up still not being able to afford a house because they cannot, unless they are going to go far out of town to buy. But in town, the minimum what you are looking at is probably about 20 million. All right.
But
Now, so the proposal is good. And let me point out one other thing that must be taken into consideration. If an individual, if a teacher is going to get 15 million from NHT, that teacher can be working $100,000 after that. I'm telling you, you see, there are some calculations that must be done that must support the amount of money that you're getting.
but the reality though, and the reality of it, are we having teachers? And I'm asking a general question.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Earning $100,000 after tax. Earning, not what, notwithstanding that they have their own personal deductions. Based on where we are at now,
Mhm.
are
So
the
you are
teachers
talking.
at that level?
So you are talking in terms at what level? You mean any former teacher, any teacher
Yes.
who's probably all right
Outside of a pre-trained teacher.
outside of a pre-trained teacher? So uh, I will say to you that yes, it happens, and it
Okay.
happens in early childhood. And why does it happen in the early childhood sector? It happens there because those early childhood practitioners who are trained, that is, they have a degree, and some of them even have diploma, and some of them even have masters. There is a quota system in place, and that is not adequately explained by some of the candidates and some people, some persons who probably they may not necessarily know.
All
There
right,
is
say
a
it to
quota,
us.
there's a quota system in place, and you have it at the basic school, especially the basic school, the infant school paid by the ministry, and the infant school, the primary school, even though they are early child 1 to 3, they will be paid by the ministry, and the same for the infant school. But at the basic school level, you normally have, in a number of basic schools, only the principal is paid by the ministry. The other teachers, even if they are trained in terms of degree, in terms of qualification, they don't get the ministry paid because they fall outside of the quota. The quota is normally 1 or 2. And so they are told that, listen, you're not going to be paid by the ministry. So now that you have gotten this and this and this, then we will advise you to find somewhere else to teach, find a infant school or a primary
Mhm.
school. However, some of these practitioners, for whatever reason, will choose to remain where they are because of probably proximity to where they live, or the fact that they may have children who they have to take to and from, and it's when you add up everything, if they go far, and then all the bills and everything, so it's like half a dozen one and whatever, and so
Yes.
they may choose to remain there. Now, the final thing I want to say to that is that the the early childhood practitioners who are in the basic schools and who are qualified, um they, when they are paid by the ECC, what happens is that what they are really given is a stipend. And so they are getting like 40, 30 something, whatever, somewhere, per month. Now, talk to me. In our economy, when we look at cost of living, when we have to talk about bills, family, self to take care of. What can that do? And then they get a little bit more from the school based on whatever fees the school would have charged the students. So, yes, to answer your question, there are teachers who are actually getting less than that.
You also having that, and you talk about the early child,
Mm-hmm.
and the reports would have said that more attention
Mm-hmm.
should or must be given to the early
Mm-hmm.
childhood sector.
Mm-hmm.
But as you mentioned, the
Mm-hmm.
principal and maybe one trained teacher, depending
Mm-hmm.
on the size of the school,
Mm-hmm.
would have gotten a full salary from the Ministry of Education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But to date, we have not seen the effort, yes, putting in these basic or infant departments to
Mm-hmm.
ensure that
Mm-hmm.
we have
Mm-hmm.
these, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to use quote unquote qualified teachers. And
Mm-hmm.
let me clear it since I say quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us who are in our age group now, miss, we're
Yes.
not taught at the basic school by quote unquote qualified teachers. Am I right?
Uh okay, qualified in terms of degree and
Degrees and the
okay, oh,
diplomas and the certificates.
right. Yes, some of us, most of us, I that is probably a decent assertion.
And we were
Then,
well taught.
but now it's more. You still have a few of them. More would be qualified now than then. Let me say that.
Yes,
Yes.
and I'm saying the point I'm making is those persons we don't see as qualified with the certificates and the diplomas, the degrees, whatever the case is,
Mm-hmm.
it's not because they're not qualified. They can teach,
Mm-hmm.
and they have been doing a very good job. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we should use this whole matter. Yes, if you want to pay them based on qualification, like how it is now, fine. But to
Mm-hmm.
having paying these teachers at this level, who is
Mm-hmm.
doing that marvelous job, who we are expecting to groom these students, more can be done.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Totally agree. When it came to my attention about 6 years ago, because I didn't even realize that there were teachers who were getting that amount of money. I marveled and I said, how do you manage? It's hard for me to crunch the numbers and to in terms of the expenses and the income and to see to balance it. I have to have a budget based on what I'm getting. How do you manage? It's as if you are making blood out of stone. So I didn't even it blew my mind. It really blew my mind. And as you said, they are not qualified in terms of having the paperwork, but in terms of the experience and the technicality, in terms of knowing how to teach, they can. However, in every system, there's a standard. There are standards, and I cannot uh say that in order to meet the standards, certain standards, uh the government is expecting far too much. What I am saying to our government is make available more of opportunities for our these practitioners to get the requisite qualifications that they need so that they can actually access some a little bit more pay and a more decent salary. No, the I there have been scholarships and also the need for more education, the need for more communication from even my union to make sure that especially the practitioners in this at this level that they know that these things are there, and therefore you can access and you can make yourself better, and therefore you can market yourself more, and so you can access more benefits when you get these qualifications.
More
And
so.
and I just want to say in terms of resources, and you had quickly spoken about priority and the early childhood sector, and I speak in terms of the students now,
Yes.
those vulnerable, because I hats off to these teachers, because when you and I as parents have one and two of them, and you them your head space and you want
Yes, more so.
So it takes so much out of them to really take care of 15 to 20. I give my hat totally to them. And when I look at the Orlando Patterson report, and it highlighted the plight of this sector and the fact that less than 7% of the spending that is done by government at in the education system for the various sector, less than 7% actually goes towards the early childhood sector, and in terms of the students, the children. And then we look at the tertiary, and we see where the report point to far better. We're up to 35% spending. And then we say that, well, guess what? The foundation, those children, those vulnerable children at that level, then we're gonna have better children graduating eventually, and to deal with the literacy and the numeracy problems that are happening if we're not fixing the foundation, if we not have more being spent at that level, so that everybody, the interventions that need to be employed are implemented, so that those learning deficiencies, those gaps can be filled. And so I am saying that that pulls some of the resources, have yes partnership with at tertiary with the private sector, so that some of the funding that actually is used at the private sector level, sorry, not at the private sector level, at the tertiary level, some of that funding can be rerouted at the foundation level. All
You
right.
know,
And we can, hello, are you seeing the violence and the all of them something there? Yeah, root causes.
and those are social issues.
Yes, yes.
We look at how we really target those, what would I say now, at risk youth, yes? And when you look at the Ministry of Education, some of their priority listing, I would have expected that more resources would have been this year, should I say, in this fiscal year,
Mm-hmm.
more
Mm-hmm.
resources would have put into schools so we
Mm-hmm.
can target these issues.
Yes.
But it's not.
No.
But as the future, and I'm talking into being, as the
Amen.
future JTA president,
Speak it.
that's what you are here right now.
Life and death is in the power of the tongue.
All right. This
Not hearing you. You're muted. Muted.
hello.
Yes, you are muted. Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, hold on.
Mm-hmm. I'm hearing you loud and clear now.
Nice. Yes. So, based on how you are looking at it,
Mm-hmm.
future JTA president
Mm-hmm.
in the country, you're 26,000, I believe, or 22 to 26,000 strong.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some data I'm not too sure of. Why?
A little
In the
less now.
past, maybe year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
the association would have lost a lot of members
Yes,
for
yes, yes.
different reasons. And
Mm-hmm.
remember, the migration would have
Oh, yes,
taken
can't leave that
away.
up. Mm-hmm.
Secondly, they are disgruntled members.
Mm-hmm.
As president of the JTA, outside of your manifesto,
Mm-hmm.
what can you say to the Jamaicans now, the teachers of this country? Rejoin the JTA. Come
Mm-hmm.
and join if you have not yet joined,
Mm-hmm.
because we are moving in a different direction. Talk to the people of this country
All right.
as prospective future JTA president.
All right. So unionism is alive and well. Um, our teachers cannot do without a union. The union of the day is the Jamaica Teachers Association, and it is everything, every chain is as strong as its weakest link. I am saying to the teachers of this association that it is not about pulling your funds. It's not about staying in the background. It's about empowering. Let your voices be heard. It's about engaging. It's about education. It's about transparency. It's about building trust and motivation. It's about proper governance and accountability. It's about communication. Here is a leader who is committed to your cause, to empower you all, to ensure that you are paid your worth and your value. Join with me. Come on board as my intention is to educate you, to communicate with you, to ensure that I get the buying that is needed, so that at the end of the day, we are all stronger together. We will all cross over. Some said the Red Sea, some said Jordan. But the bottom line is we must achieve together. A chain, as I said to you, is as strong as its weakest link. As your president and your president elect, I am saying that all teachers of this association vote for a leader who is committed to the cause and to the needs and to the interests of all categories of teachers in this country. Vote for a leader who is committed to your cause. Vote for a leader who is loyal, a leader who is authentic. Whatever you say is that you get. A leader who is sincere and who believes that as a leader, I first need to serve your interests before I expect to lead. And having served you for so long, I am saying, vote for Dorian Allen-Rainford as your president in the JTA president-elect elections for 2024 to 2025. Vote June the 17th to June the 21. Vote Dorian Allen-Rainford. Class candidate. Class is now in session.
I don't want to end the class, like this. It's a power statement. And maybe it should have been the final statement, but we know the election's coming up. And you have said it all. It's a good word for the campaign. But recently I was told that there are many polls being done. I never knew. There are polls being done within maybe the hierarchy of the JTA, maybe within the different groups, the DAs and so on. You would have seen some of those polls. I've heard about them because I'm not so strong. And JTA, well, maybe since what did I say, Fabulous 7 were here, your interaction would probably include Saudichress. But what are your chances, though, so far?
All right.
Polls look to you?
All right. So I should really say this, well, let me tell you something. I have not placed much attention to the polls. And why I have not done that, because first of all, the sharing of the information. Some of us candidates may not necessarily have shared the information, shared it widely, shared it with our the persons who would be on board with us, shared it in schools and whatever. And then knowing about statistics and knowing about measurement and the interpretation of the measurement. Sampling is about random, and for random sampling to take place, then it means that if a number of teachers are sampled right across this country, it must be random. And that was not done. And so the sampling has to be random for it to be effectively and correctly interpreted. And so I laud the work that was done.
Oh, so you did not do, you have anything to do with any polls? You have not polled any?
No.
Poll were done by the class team?
No.
Just checking. Because as I said, I've not seen them.
None was done. None was done because I the polls have been done, but it is how it has been done, and when you interpret the data for the data that you have must be in order it must measure what you want to measure, and for it to measure what you want to measure, it has to be random sampling. And
Okay.
so you can't put much weight if it's not randomly done. And as I say, I am one of the persons who have been guilty. I've raised.
You don't have to worry now. I don't want you to put too much information out here. Yes, but I just tend to ask, about that because I just recently
Yeah,
heard about
right.
these polls. So,
I don't put much weight on that. That will not. I'm not saying that it will, but when you look at what some of us didn't even get off the ground, and I mean obviously because some of us would not have shared the information as
okay, that's
so
fine.
as I
That's
say,
okay.
it has to be random sampling for you
Okay.
to interpret it effectively.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Dorian. Am I calling? Is it Dorian or Dorian?
Dorian.
Dorian Allen
And
Renford, one of our strong, tough talking, I would say, a female who is very strong. Yes, a minister of religion, one that is actually seeking your assistance through votes coming the next election. And please remember, you don't have to sign up to vote anymore. Yes,
no,
it is the face to face that is normally done.
very good, very good. Yes,
Mrs. Dorian Allen Renford, I thank you. It has been a
you
power of strength on this show, and I
are.
wish to see
you
you again
Thank you so very
on
much, and
this show.
you're most welcome, and thank you, Jamaica, and thank you all those persons who listen. And remember, come the 17th to the 21st of June, as our host said, it is face to face, and
Yes.
so make sure you cast your vote for your candidate, your class candidate, Dorian Allen Rainford, for JTA President elect 2024 to 2025. See
Thank you.
you.
That's where it is, people. And I thank you very much for joining Sally. Bless
Yes.
up
All
yourselves and
right.
all the others that were here who have not
All
identified
right.
themselves. I'm sure
All
that
right.
this show would have been one of the best. Thank you very much again. And we'll see
You
you
are
all
most
the
welcome.
best in your endeavors. Yes.
Thank you very
Ladies and
much. All
gentlemen, this
right.
is where we leave you tonight. Thank you again for joining and joining us another time for another episode of the Saudichress Show. Bye. Thank you.
All right. Thank
All
you
right.
very
Good, good.
much.
Let me close our live stream.